So welcome everybody to our first panel discussion on the topic of human adaptability in the age of Gen AI. And it's a real pleasure to welcome our panelists for this first discussion, Calum Chace, Loretta Breuning, and Mike Vaughan. Welcome to each of you. Just to start us off, please could I come to each of you in turn and ask you to say hello and just a few words of introduction. Calum, please, I'll start with you.
Hello. My name is Calum Chace, and I had a 30-year career in journalism and business and retired in 2011, which gave me the opportunity to explore an idea I've been fascinated about since I read Ray Kurzweil's Spiritual Machines, Are We Spiritual Machines, in 1999. And that idea is that superintelligent AI might arrive on this planet in my lifetime. I don't think I've ever heard a more interesting or more compelling idea, and I've been exploring that in books and podcasts and talks and other media ever since.
Thank you, Calum. Welcome. Loretta, please. Hi there.
Hi, I'm Loretta Breuning. I'm the founder of the Intermammal Institute, and I do research and write books about the animal brain that controls the chemicals that make us feel good and bad and how it's wired from early experience. And before that, I had a long career as a professor of management.
Welcome, Loretta. Thank you. And last but not least, Mike. Hi there.
Hi, Mike Vaughan. So the CEO of the Regis company, it's a simulation company, and we've created a set of tools, AI tools to make simulations scalable and affordable. And I'm also the chief editor of The Thinking Effect. And it's a site that is dedicated to L&D professionals to help them learn about and use AI tools to advance their careers.
Thanks, Mike. Well, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to speak with you now. For those joining the Curiosity Forum for the first time, remember, if you want to join in the conversation, please use the chat. You can message us, ask us questions, and I'll try and feed those into our panel. But let's get into it. We're talking about human adaptability in the age of Gen AI. Let me pose a question to each of you. Astro Teller, Google X, described how technology is evolving faster than humans can adapt. Calum, let's start with you. Do you think it's inevitable that humans are going to get left behind?
Short answer, yes, unless we merge with the machines. Slightly longer answer, I don't think Teller's right yet. We can just about keep up, but technology development is accelerating. There's a phenomenon that's been well noted for decades. We're on an exponential growth path. Our computers are getting twice as powerful every 18 months or so. That's known as Moore's Law. And contrary to popular opinion, it's not stopping or even slowing down. And there's similar exponential rates in various other kinds of technology. And unless it stops, at some point, we're going to create a superintelligence. We're going to create a machine which is smarter than an adult human. It's possible that we might create one which doesn't have any agency or doesn't have any consciousness, but I don't see why that would happen. It seems more likely that it will have both of those things. The consciousness bit is probably the least important. And what happens when we get superintelligence is that we lose control. Just as there's no way that chimpanzees and certainly ants could control humans, we won't be able to control an entity which is millions of times smarter than us. And so I think our best future is that we merge with those machines. So, as I said, short answer, yes, ultimately, unadjusted, unaugmented humans would lose control.
Thanks, Calum. Loretta, Calum mentioned us as mammals. So I'm going to come to you next. What do you think? Do you think it's inevitable that we'll get left behind?
Well, first, we're very influenced by metaphors. And when you present this as a metaphor of a train moving forward and we risk being left behind, that appeals to our natural mammalian fear of being left behind by the herd. And so I don't agree that we'll be left behind. I don't agree with that metaphor. So I think it's better to think of technology as something that we use to serve our own needs. And we're constantly making choices about whether a particular application serves our need in that moment. And the best way to understand that is to think about how a herd really works in nature. So if you see a wildebeest crossing, it looks like they're all moving together, but rather each individual has agency and is making a decision about when to take its next step. And when it has to cross a river and it's attacked by a crocodile, the herd does not protect it from crocodiles, period. Each individual has to deal with that. And so I think AI cannot rescue us from this inherent condition of having to face the crocodiles ourselves. And so we should better off feel empowered and keep reminding ourselves that we constantly have the power to make our choices about when we use it and whether it's an application that serves us.
Thanks, Loretta. Mike, what do you think?
So I did my very first AI project in early 90s and actually implementing some neural nets. And so saw kind of breakthroughs happening almost every 10 years. And then it started accelerating to about every 5 years. And then most recently, every year, and then every month. And now, honestly, seeing breakthroughs almost every week. And so in one sense, it's really exciting. In another sense, it's very daunting and quite intimidating at times, even with my passion for AI. The estimates are around about 8 years to 10 years before we start seeing AGI. And that's when AI starts to become quite intelligent, where it can generalize its intelligence across different types of domains. And that, again, is also both exciting and scary, because I think that's when, as Calum was saying, that we're going to have to be really serious about how do we either integrate and leverage the AI or start to really put some boundaries around what people are allowed to do and not do with AI. So I do think it's a great tool that amplifies us right now. And I don't know about the idea of merging with AI, but certainly having it accentuate all the different types of activities and free us up from doing a lot of the mundane stuff is certainly something that I think is very powerful.
Thanks, Mike. Calum, let's go back to you. Merging with the AI, tell us more about that. What can we do to adapt as AI becomes part of our daily lives, as Loretta says, I guess, whether we like it or not?
Well, you have to be specific about what time frame you're thinking about. AGI, as Mike said, some people think it's going to happen in 8 years. And artificial general intelligence, AGI, is an AI which has all the cognitive abilities of an adult human. What you get beyond that is superintelligence, and there's probably no upper limit to that. And as I say, it could be millions of times smarter. In the period between now and the arrival of AGI, we do have control. We're smarter than it. We can decide what it can and can't do. And in theory, we could decide whether to develop it further. In practice, I don't think we can. I think that because the advantage of owning a better AI than your competitor is so great, you win whatever competition you're in. We're not going to stop. If you're a company or a government, then having a better AI is really, really important. If you're a military, it is literally life and death. So I think it's impossible for us to cease developing advanced AI. And cease is one of the 4 C's. I think there are 4 C's in our future, 4 possible scenarios. Cease is one of them. The second one is control, which a lot of people are working on really hard, and I hope they succeed. But I just don't see how we can ever hope to control entities which are a million times smarter than us. And then the third scenario is catastrophe. Many people think this is inevitable. I don't. The fourth scenario is celebration, which is that the superintelligence really, really likes us, decides to help us. And as I say, encourages us or allows us to merge with it. Why do I think that would be a good thing? Being human is really terrific. I'm really enjoying being human, and I don't want to stop. However, being superhuman would be better, almost by definition. Humans are subject to all sorts of frailties and limitations. We die, we can't travel through space, we can't be in more than one place at any one time. Superhumans, superintelligences will surpass many of these limitations. And I think that would be a very good thing.
So kind of perhaps that's the positive if for those that want to live a more superhuman life. Loretta, there's a lot of fear and anxiety around, particularly the Gen AI world that we're going through at the moment. Is this misplaced, the fear and anxiety that people are experiencing?
Well, expectations have a huge impact on our emotions. You may have heard that If rewards exceed your expectations, dopamine is triggered. If rewards fall short of your expectations, cortisol, the stress chemical, is triggered. So a lot of it has to do with individual expectations. And I'll give you a great example. When I decide to use an AI virtual assistant while I'm maybe getting tech support or something, and if I think, oh, this will save me time, and then, as you know, often doesn't save you time. And then you get very frustrated. And that's a lot of stress, and the stress is in your body for a good hour. So managing one's own expectations, I think, is a huge factor in whatever particular AI goals a person sets. And we can't always predict, will this save me time or not? A lot of uncertainty, but to be conscious of your own goals. My goal is to communicate and save time. Is this tool helping me do it? Can I have realistic expectations and exceed them?
Yeah. Mike, let me ask you a very direct question. Do you think Gen AI will make us lazy? Mm-hmm. And are there some new skills that we're going to need to learn instead of just becoming lazy and letting things, let it take our place there?
Well, I think for the next 10 years, no, it's not going to make us lazy whatsoever. I think it's going to be tools, and we're already seeing this, that these tools are already helping accelerate, especially in the L&D community. They're helping us accelerate every aspect of asset creation to creating online learning, and freeing us up in many ways to do what I think we love doing, which is creating experiences that all of us really can grow from. And so in many ways, I think it's going to be the best thing that's going to happen in the L&D community over the next 10 years. Will it make us lazy going forward? I think there is that potential. Already saw some pretty cool tech. I don't know if anyone saw that AI pin that came out recently, but it's pretty amazing in what it's already allowing people to do and taking care of a lot of activities for you. And does that free us up to do other things? Perhaps. But does it also make us a little bit lazy and not put the thought necessary into the critical thinking? Yeah, I do think that is a high possibility.
Do you think we're learning new skills, or are there new skills that already we need to learn that you're seeing, Mike?
I think we need, I think they're the skills that we know, which is kind of the higher cognitive skills, the critical thinking, the analyzing, being able to weed through all the noise, decision making, problem solving. These are the things that make us uniquely human. And these are kind of the things that AI, at least right now, is not good at. AI is a great knowledge repository, but it's not great at doing a lot of those types of things yet. And so I think those are the skills that we need to focus on in the next 5 to 10 years and really start to develop those out.
I'm going to just turn to the chat and I'll look at a couple of the questions in the chat. There's a few that where folk are asking about ethics here. Just to pick one up, Calum, I'll come to you first. What ethical considerations should we keep in mind as Gen AI continues to advance?
I'm nervous about the use of the word ethics when it comes to AI because it creates false expectations. AIs currently are not conscious. They're not ethical agents. They don't have any morality. We do as humans, and the way we use them can be sensible or not sensible. But it's, I think, slightly dangerous to talk about AI ethics. And the other trouble with the word is that if you disagree with somebody about a course of action and you think it's a moral disagreement, then the danger is you think that person's bad, not just wrong, not just making a mistake, they're actually bad. And arguments can get overheated. I prefer the term responsible AI. And I think in the next period, before we get to the singularities, I think there's a bunch of singularities that will come before the technological singularity, which is the creation of superintelligence. I think in this earlier period, before we get to the singularities, there's lots of ways in which AI can be very, very positive, and there's lots of ways in which it can be very damaging. Clearly, it's already starting to be used in mass personalized hacking, and that's a big worry. And an example of that is, I think this isn't happening yet, but fairly soon, we're going to start getting phone calls, which are automated spam calls and appear to be from a member of our family. The voice, the tone, the vocabulary will be virtually indistinguishable from that member of the family. And they will say, help, I'm in a lot of trouble, send a lot of money to this number now. And I think we should all have a safe word or a safe phrase in our families so that we can ask a question which the mass personalized fake cannot answer. So that's just one example. Privacy, bias, transparency. There's a whole bunch of ways in which AI can be misused, clearly. Equally, there's a whole bunch of ways in which AI is already being used to create miracles, frankly. The previous big bang in AI, which came in 2012, which brought deep learning, brought us things like instantaneous translation, maps that tell you how long it's going to take you to do quite a long journey, and which way to go, photo recognition, all sorts of really extraordinary things. And Gen AI is creating a whole new set of miracles, and it's going to dramatically improve healthcare, dramatically improve education. There's lots and lots of ways in which AI is going to improve all of our lives. So yes, what people refer to as AI ethics is important. I prefer the term responsible AI for it.
Loretta, do you have a view on the ethical question? I saw you nodding there.
Yeah, I was shaking my head at that thing. I think some historical context is interesting. Did you know that Socrates did not know how to write, even though he lived at a time when writing existed? Confucius and Jesus did not know how to write. Everything we know about them was written down by others. And Socrates claimed that learning to write was unethical because it would make it harder for children to learn the skill of memorizing, which was the valued skill at those times. So that's fascinating. And then people, mostly humans, did not know how to read for, all through human history. And then people quickly were motivated to learn to read when the printing press was invented and started printing Bibles in the vernacular language. So people felt like they had the word of God directly and didn't have to rely on gatekeepers. So I think it's these human dramas, like the gatekeepers would have thought that that was very unethical. So everyone is very much formed in their own self-interest, but of course, everyone appeals to ethics cannot acknowledge their self-interest. So ethical arguments are often quite tedious, in my opinion.
To move us along, Loretta, you talk about sort of Socrates and how writing is moved on education, and the printing press then moved on education. Mike, how do you think Gen AI is going to influence the way we think about learning in our society?
Well, some of the things that we're already seeing, which is the use of even just something as simple as ChatGPT, is that it's already helping people learn to write better. So it's actually kind of leveling the playing field. I think BCG wrote a pretty good report recently where they gave some AI tools to individuals that were known to be quite good in their job, and then some others that were kind of new, didn't really understand it. And it really helped amplify the skills of those individuals that were new to the role and didn't really understand the role. And so that's to level the playing field, which is pretty exciting because that starts to help organizations really give opportunity to a lot of people that typically would not have that opportunity. So we're seeing that already. We're also seeing that the tools are allowing people to kind of shift and focus on kind of higher, more difficult types of problems and challenges, especially in the learning community. Instead of focusing on kind of that knowledge level learning, which AI is quite good at, we can now focus on creating experiences that change the hearts and minds of learners. And so we're already starting to see kind of a shift towards that as well. So I guess in many ways, I see a lot of good coming from what we're learning from the AI tools and what it's going to allow us to do going forward.
Thank you. Calum, what do you think on that one?
I agree with Mike. I think generative AI will help many people write a lot better. And that's an underrated advantage. A lot of the writing that people send to each other isn't terribly clear. And so that creates lots of misunderstanding. So if we all communicate better, that'd be a huge improvement. I think really we don't know the differences that Gen AI is going to make. It's only been a year since ChatGPT was launched. It's been 7 months since GPT-4 was launched. So it's very early days. I think it will be like spreadsheets where people thought, oh God, that's the end of people, children, everybody knowing how to add things up and do basic arithmetic. But actually, spreadsheets has made us able to do much more complicated, useful things than we were able to do back in the old days when I was in school, when we used to use slide rules, believe it or not. So I think it will be a tremendous accelerator of human ability, and we will see really interesting and surprising effects.
Loretta, you mentioned earlier that our ability to follow the herd, and we quite like just to follow the herd. That's a nice, safe place to be. There's a lot of experimentation and enthusiasm, particularly for Gen AI, but of course wider AI applications at the moment. Are we at risk of just blindly following the herd? If so, what should we do about that?
I think we're already blindly following the herd in daily life. And so this will just be another thing about it. So the solution is always to become aware of your personal agency. And as I said, when you see a video of a herd moving across the savannah, you don't realize that that's an emergent property of individual decisions, and to keep bringing your consciousness back to the individual, like each wildebeest is making a decision. Should I walk this way or should I walk that way? If they walk toward the herd, all of the grass that's available to them has already been peed on, and they know the difference and they don't like it. So they're motivated to step away from the herd. But if they take too many steps away from the herd, then they'll be eaten by a predator. So they're always making the decision, should I take this next step a little closer to the herd or a little away? And that's really the agency that we have, is like, how much in this particular moment will this AI tool help me advance my goals? Or how much can I work better without that tool? And frankly, I have friends who have done things on AI and then spent more time revising them and said they could have done it faster themselves. So just that's the decision that we'll be faced with in each moment.
Mike, do you agree? And when we mentioned experimentation, what are some of your sort of favorite experiments that you're seeing around Gen AI at the moment?
Well, a quick experiment that I did on myself. I've been traveling every single week and speaking about AI, meeting with organizations and CLOs. And so all that travel has put a lot of pressure on my wife to take care of things. And so I decided I'm going to write her a really nice love letter and have this wonderful meal for her. And so I put this letter together, and then I was like, I'm going to run this through ChatGPT and see what it does with it. And first off, it was very humbling because it rewrote a lot of it. But what it did really well is that it changed and reframed things. So the intent was something that she could hear, something that she could feel. So I actually shared it with her, and it was, we're having a good laugh over it. And she was like, this is amazing. I really feel heard. And so it taught me how that I need to think about the words that I use, how I frame things, how I structure something. So, she felt heard. So that was a recent experiment. That was pretty exciting. And then you asked about do I agree with the herd thing? What I'm seeing right now is that it doesn't feel like a single herd. It feels like there's all of these different opportunities that are starting to take place. There's all this stuff going on in healthcare now, and then all this stuff going in the back with deep AI and deep learning and so forth. And then all this stuff around robotics and cars. And, it's almost like it's giving all these different opportunities. So it's not just following one single herd any longer. It really does feel like it's opening up opportunities that you can now follow your passion and do something with AI that you might not have ever had a chance to do before. So I do see it not as a single big herd any longer.
Calum, what's your view on this? And again, any particularly favorite experiments that you're paying attention to?
Well, first of all, I want to pay credit to Mike. What an extraordinary brave thing to do, to admit that you had GPT-4 help write a love letter to your wife. I think that's splendid. I would never admit that. I would never do it. No, seriously, I use GPT-4 a lot. I write two kinds of books. I write about AI and I write about travel, because I travel quite a lot. And I use GPT-4 to write the first draft of a lot of the chapters in my travel books. And in the editing process, I have to essentially entirely rewrite it. So there's not much left from the first draft. However, getting the first draft done is always the most painful and tedious and annoying part of writing. So it's wonderful to have a machine do that for me. I think it speeds me up by about 50%, which is dramatic. And I think I'm part of one of two herds. I think there's two herds at the moment in areas of the world which have got access to GPT-4. One herd is busily experimenting away and finding out what works, what doesn't work, and wasting time on some projects and saving a lot of time on other projects. And then there's another herd which either hasn't really thought about it or is scared of it and isn't using it. And I think that second herd is putting itself at a grave disadvantage in the job market and in actually possibly in the love market as well, as Mike's experience is anything to go by.
One of the topics that's coming up in the chat at the moment is about work and the future of work and what AI will mean for jobs and the roles that we do. Brandon was asking, do we think, maybe Calum, I'll ask you first, there will be a job left untouched by AI in a reasonable time frame, let's say?
Short answer, no. I've thought about this a great deal. I wrote a book called The Economic Singularity about what happens to jobs. And again, I think it all depends on what time frame we're talking about. At some point, unless we stop developing these machines, and as I've said, I don't think we will, or unless there is some reason why there's a hard stop, we simply can't, or it's physically impossible to make them smarter. Assuming neither of those two things is true, at some point we will make machines which can do pretty much everything that we can do for money, cheaper, better, and faster than us. Now, that might happen at the same time as we create superintelligence, or there might be a gap. I suspect there'll be a period between when we make machines which can do everything we can do in the workplace for jobs, for money, and when we create superintelligence. And during that period, we'll have all of the humans with no jobs, which isn't necessarily a problem if we can figure out how to distribute the wealth, which will still be being made because machines will still be doing lots of jobs. And humans will be doing lots of work. Work is something that we do for fun as well as for money. And in fact, most humans, the jobs they do don't give them any fun. They don't give them any meaning. There's lots and lots of surveys have shown there's only about 15% of people who really, really enjoy their jobs feel self-actualized by them. Most people do their jobs just to put food on the table. So if we can take that drudgery away, that would be a good thing. Now, when will that happen? When will we get the economic singularity so that there are no more jobs for humans? I don't know. I used to think it was probably 25 years or more. When GPT-4 came along, I thought, look, it's going to be quicker than that. And some of the people who are, most at the coalface, who are developing these systems, think it's going to be very soon. Sam Altman seems to think that we're going to have superintelligence before the end of the decade. If he's right, that means we all ought to be spending a lot more time thinking about the implications of this than we are. We're really only at the beginning of the conversation. We only just had the Bletchley Park Summit on AI safety last week, and that was the first, or a couple of weeks ago, that was the first time that world politicians had even mentioned the word existential risk. So we're very early stages of the conversation that we need to be having.
Thank you, Calum. We're at the early stages of the AI conversation. We're at the closing stages of this first conversation. Loretta, just to turn to you, any final thoughts? What's top of your mind as we close this panel discussion?
Well, as a college professor, I've spent a lot of time getting papers from students that don't really say anything. And now in my work life, I get a lot of marketing pitches that don't say anything. So if everyone can write this drivel faster, it's not a step forward to me. It's not a step back. So I think we have to keep in mind our real goal is to communicate meaning, and our effectiveness depends on communicating meaning. And the other quickly, when calculators were invented and students didn't have to learn math, they said because the calculator would do it. But many of us have been at a checkout in a store and been with a store clerk who can't do simple arithmetic. So I think that's really good model to keep in mind. Imagine a person going through life that can't do simple arithmetic because they were told that a machine would do it for them. I always say you can't bake cookies because if you can't have 3/4 of a cup of an ingredient, then that was my bar for math.
Thanks, Loretta. Mike, your closing thoughts, please.
Yeah, I've been in the L&D community for 25 years, and I really believe that this is the greatest opportunity L&D professionals have in leveraging these tools. And unfortunately, what I'm seeing in most organizations is very few people are even trying the tools. Now, there's good reason. A lot of organizations are very nervous and anxious, but there is an opportunity to start to play with a lot of these tools even outside of the organization. And I'm seeing people not making the time to do so. And I don't believe that it's going to take L&D jobs. I think it's going to rewrite the jobs and change the descriptions of what people focus on. So my encouragement to people would be embrace these tools, start to use them. They're going to help you get faster, better, cheaper. Quite frankly, I know that sounds cliche, but it's very real. And it's also going to help you move in your career, and it's going to shift you from being someone that's just a knowledge producing content knowledge to someone who can really create experiences that really engage the hearts and minds of learners.
Thanks, Mike. I'd like to take a moment to thank each of you for participating in a great conversation. Calum, Loretta, Mike, thank you very much. Thanks, Joel, for scribing and drawing this one. And thanks, everyone, for participating in the chat. See, a lot of conversation and even broader topics than I think we can cover in half an hour. So keep it up, and our panelists, I think, will join you in that. But thank you once again. Brilliant first conversation. And Garrick, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.